I'd like to continue our series on the environment. We've been taking a look at different environmental concerns in terms of climate change and how to make our air, our water, and our soil better, and some of the ramifications of climate change. And we are encouraged to do that, of course, by Pope Francis. His encyclical Laudato Si has really kind of led the way for many people to begin to reflect on the environment on a deeper level, and really as a spiritual concern for all of us. That this is part of our inheritance from God. God has shared with us some really amazing, wonderful realities in our world. And what can we do to preserve them, to preserve different species, and to improve the health of our climate? One of the concerns that is raised with regard to climate change and the environment is persistent drought. And of course, droughts have always been with us. But many people are wondering, is there something in the climate that might be affecting some of these droughts in various areas of our world? We haven't seen drought in a long time. And is there a connection between some of the greenhouse gases that are polluting our air, our water, and our soil, and the extended periods of drought? And one of the areas of concern, of course, is in California. Recently, California has had their three driest years on record. Now, when you have one pretty dry year, you say, well, it's understandable. When you have two, you become a little bit alarmed. When you have three, you're like, what's happening here? Why is this happening all at once? Is there some possible explanation for this? And now, of course, the present year, the drought is in its fourth year in a row. So that is a concern. A big concern with regard to that is the shortage issues on the Colorado River. The states now are set to negotiate possible cutbacks to keep Lake Mead from getting too low. Lake Mead is just 150 feet from what they call the dead pool level, which water then could not flow downstream. So if that were to happen, of course, it would impact so many states and so many farmers and so many everyday average citizens who depend on it for their water supply. So that's a real concern in terms of the Colorado River. Certainly, in terms of California, it seems to be better in the northern part of the state. Mega drought in the west is in its 23rd year. 19 of the past 23 years have been dry years. So again, a real concern. In 2021, the state recorded its warmest June through September period since 1895. So you can see what the concern would be, 1895. Wow. You're talking over 100 years, and why is this so warm now? Over the next 20 years, the concern is that California could lose as much as 10% of its water supply. Of course, the impact that would have on farmers and the civilian population would be amazing. Would be horrible, would be terrible. So a real concern in terms of that. Who are the most impacted? The most impacted, of course, are the farmers who depend on it for irrigation for their crops. Also, rural towns, very impacted, again, in different areas where not a large population, but they're very dependent on the water supply. And also various ecosystems that get impacted by this lack of water. Hundreds of thousands of acres of California farmland were fallowed this year, and fallowed, of course, because of a lack of water. The Delta smelt, for example, are really functionally extinct, only found now in hatcheries. because of this lack of water, this drought. The cheapest way to go in terms of having some sort of conservation movement to husband the water that we do have and to preserve as much water as possible. Cheapest way to go is to replace lawns and to fix leaks so that all that water is not really being wasted on lawns and on, of course, leaks are a huge problem as well. The amount of waste that happens is very substantial. But then what are the longer term solutions? So we have these solutions that will be stopgap, but then what about over the long run in terms of California, in terms of the drought? Longer term solutions would be some that have been proposed, paying farmers to convert land to other uses, recharging depleted groundwater reserves after intense storms. So if some accommodations are made with the farmers and other uses are developed for that would certainly help. It would use a lot less water. And of course, when you deplete the groundwater reserves after intense storms, try to recharge them as soon as possible. All of these would help with the water situation. And they are longer term solutions. They would take time to enact those solutions, but certainly worth looking at it and saying, can we go in that direction? Hold back more water in normal times. So when you do have a good supply of water, hold some back so that you're conserving more. Don't say, well, this is a good year. We don't have a drought this year. Things look good. Let's use more water. No, you don't want to go that route. You want to preserve the water for as long as possible. So hold back more in normal times. Another concern, extreme precipitation and flooding amid the dry spell. So you have this dry spell, and then you get these terrible rainstorms, and then you get flooding. And then you have all the problems, the mudslides and homes destroyed, roads destroyed because of the flooding. For example, in 2017, California went from depleted reservoirs to the wettest winter in modern history in parts of Northern California. So there you go. You have these extreme events. You don't have any water, and then all of a sudden, you have all these rainstorms, and what are you going to do with all this water that's impacting you, and all the floods and mudslides and things that happen as a result of the heavy downpours. January of 2021, post-wildfire flooding and mudslides led to one of the nation's billion-dollar weather disasters. So the cost of these weather disasters really tremendous. Flooding in the West, Yellowstone National Park, Las Vegas, and Death Valley, October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. So there were these floods that greatly impacted those areas, and again, dealing with that, very, very difficult for the people. And if this is related to climate change, and many scientists are making that connection, certainly if we can do something in the direction of reducing greenhouse gases, we're going to help with this situation too. And you won't have these extreme weather events where you go from drought to this intense precipitation. What is the long-term forecast as scientists look at it? They say a significant increase in both drought and flood severity in a warming climate. So as the climate continues to warm, these are going to be some of the impacts. So good to study this type of situation, be aware of it, because then we can start to think about some possible ways of reducing the conditions that lead to these weather events.